was quite na hun wat ina o askodo di binibi na hona ko na kodo ikke na di ni do les kodo ne den din aro inta kodo a hui in a car ne dado na kai han nei la hona hun wat da wel si shmana ban jona istra aro nan chidi ni todi ni ibe da na hona ibe ko date ni che date ibe bebe ni na hona aro na hona dicho na na shil ne hona ich na han khasin to hona ich is da dis ne oda na na shil ne ki ko don ki sa na shodo le chiri na shini hona al ko khutwa be ni sa na shodo le ayil ke an pi ke da hona beni sa na shodo le hona aro ko I hona da is ago da hona ibe na khamsa na shoni ke dan la hona da hona wa go hona ido fani da has go hona khamsa na shon aro na na shina da kai go hona la ji and da shtra da khamsa na shon la shi je da ze hona awade da en la hona da khamsa na shon asla ba sei so da I khasin so I khon khutsen ho aro abtrai hona tloni da hona a hui tsene da hona a hui tsena na shi hona Ashe awade da en la hona ki ta na shon ti hona aro kan a hui tsene da na shon ye jan da ye jan da se ye na sheni hona da hona zo da hun shen de hona for the area a be hoden ni da hona da be to the sandi benibi hona aro al hona ke da na shon veli da ha pani da hona last for the loud hona be kacha honda kacha banana so they eat hona na khabja na shona na khaba na chen hona what I honda ashil koi hona bada jo body kacha hona badan shingi da no ba shna ba to ke na le ke ba yoda ba meni badan shingi da hala hona badan na honda ni ta ho zande executive branch judicial branch legislative branch it's a state and the has tani adona ba na da shi da hona khabja hona shona adona ho ya te ko ikishin da hodi ni ti hona la han ko hona adona hona ai ti a hui hona ba ka jo pa di na hona ko di benibi na na do le ho ni tran le gi hona bi ke so da shi hona be ho ha da di be hona ni na klostan la hona yeah ye hada dol ye do ye hada do kahona ye mana hasan ye hada ye hona hashin toy ye ni hishna hada na san la hona I think hishin da hol te hona da is aga hona I think beda ke hona to get hashin al tobin da hol te aro na na to ya da mel la hona to da lego hona o ye hada aro shud da la da le aro to hada ma go da abda hasti la hona ibn na hona son le ki ba ka jo ba ne zan shi le shi ne na machine hona ila han toy ho ba hasti do le shona so da hona ba ba shao argument fi ge jo hona o dai hona so da e be di ne do le shan di be ne bi aro na na pe shwa an le ge 24th Nation Council hona ana de built egon shabta hona shona aro ba shina be ri na de ni da hona aro na na so keben na le keda da han hona ba ganda da han hona o shaba da shi hona o da ito de do le ti be ni bi ho aro as ko ni jo ho jo do le a ti de ni jo ho jo do le ko jo na hat clean do le ko jo na clean ko jo na clean thank you vice chair okay.
Thank you, Honorable Daniels, for the invocation. We really appreciate that. Your words and thoughts and in the form of prayer this morning. Please, also listen to that. Also, let you. Now they cut all this. So that into the case and then go here and let's say. Introductions starting with Resource Development Committee members. Honorable Freeland, introductions.
Jay, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Jay, thank you. Kongi Resource Development Committee, colleagues of Eastern Land Commission. Thank you, brother, for that wonderful prayer, and always a blessing to have you conduct the invocation again this morning. So, good morning, staff. Good morning, everyone on this call. Jay Mark Freeland, the looking to get to it, so we show up here on the Central Kingdom, these close to Cades, I represent 8 chapters out of Eastern Navajo, Crown Point, I Vicente, White Rock, Lake Valley, Herfano, and Nayinde. I'm also the vice chair of Eastern Land Commission as well, so I'm wearing 2 hats today as an Eastern rep of RDC as well as the vice chair of Eastern Land Commission. So, Jay, thank you for having this call. I am driving today. I'm going to probably lose signal, but I'll get back on the call when I do have service. Jay, thank you, and my colleagues of Eastern Land Commission, Mr. Rogers, and the staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Freeland. Honorable Daniels, introductions.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Shake Kodo, Kodo, Arani Kodo, the Eastern Navajo Land Board in the Lahoba. I apologize, Kodo, Eastern Land Commission here. Tele Kodo, I apologize, Kodo. Kodo should actually Kodo, Herman Daniels Jr. I don't know, but it's a shady that's there. I don't know, Toya Glenny. I don't know, Kaida Ned, that's a shame. I don't. Scott Lloyd has another what I didn't know.
That's all.
Can you please put your phone on mute?
Is that?
Can you please put your phone on mute?
No, let's listen in. They might have some juicy gossip. Is it?
So I can't go in there?
Daniel So is on the call now.
Over the holidays.
Is there any way to mute them?
Hey, Herman Daniels, put your phone on mute. Okay, Honorable Daniels, can you proceed?
Yes, Vice Chair. I see my phone on mute, but Corona Gate, oh yeah. I doubt to think Kodo should shake without Vice Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Daniels. Honorable Key Allen Begay, are you on the call here? If so, introductions. If not, then we move on to Honorable Wilson Stewart. Are you on the call? Introductions. If not, then we move on to Chairman Nez. If you're on the call, introductions, sir. Thomas Walker, Vice Chairman of the Resource Development Committee. I represent 5 chapters out in Western Navajo Agency. Those chapters are Loop, Bird Springs, Tulani Lake, Cameron, and Coal Mine Canyon. Colleagues and members of the Eastern Land Commission. Commissioners, Honorable starting with Honorable Yazi. Yazi, introductions.
Vice Chair, thank you, sir. And then also the committee members and then the Eastern Land Commission. Mr. Daniels, thank you for the prayer, and thank you, staff, for getting this all lined up. My name is Edmund Yazi with Eastern Land Commission, and it's good to be online. And I'll address my clan. Toi Glini Slino Tori Chin Basichin, Senajini Dashiche Ashin Dashinala. So looking forward to this little work day that we got scheduled talking about the Nelly project. Vice Chair, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Yazi. Nana Dode, Honorable Jamie Henyu, introductions.
Good morning, Shananta. The Resource Development Committee, the Eastern Navajo Land Commission, I need to call it. Yeah, but he's daily call the Benny Beer. I don't know if at the Hayward. But you're not this kid, though. The late watching day has the hash is the instrument to the chin, but it's chin. I took a clean is a chair that I told was additionally that the Korea chan. The hot young it could be that has in the Shiban that's it so. That's saving the hot on new puppies. The hot young. So Alamo and Tojle, able to the shot so. Out there, yeah, now. Shana. So, Chancellor, Kenna.
Thank you, Honorable Henyu Sitsula. Dana Hassan the Koya Teheko. Honorable Daniel So China, introductions.
So, yeah, the Tele. Say Daniel So, das ist ja nicht so. Change Kinenslo. Dann ist es Tachini, das ist die. Das ist nicht, das ist die, da, nach Bani, das ist eine, und auch ich, Kinensle. Nle, not Neil Jean, don't you see, now Shadow, AP. Nas ne lebe nas ango but not ani nesle so without any tells us to the Resource and Development Committee for setting up the Zoom call. But only in that haigi asa ebje endo linklegi on yadel chedole. Yeah.
Thank you, Honorable So Shana Inanta. Although next is Honorable Speaker Damon. Are you on the call, sir? So introductions. If not, although we move on to another member of the Eastern Land Commission, Honorable Danny Simpson. Sunanta. Introductions.
Yate Bene, Mr. Vice Chair Walker, the members of the Resource and Development Committee and Eastern Land Commission, Yate Bene Nana, say Danny Simpson, 20 is Washington. National though Hanat Cleanet, though Herfno Dasnido, Nascato again, Yate Benana. Thank you, Vice Chair Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson, for attending our meeting, and it's good to hear your voice there, sir. It's been a while for Yate Benana.
Thank you, sir.
Actually, staff, legislative staff, Ms. Begay, starting with yourself. Introductions.
Good morning. Yad Benish, Shami Begay, and Shia Auto Resource Development, Bitnashnish. I'm the legislative advisor. Auto Nakadina and Shonda Bettishin, Bettishin, Tobahi, Data Shade, Hachini, Data Sunala, Sun and Shan. I'm calling from the office today, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, back to you.
Hey, thank you, Ms. Begay. Ms. Springer, Heather Springer, you want to introduce yourself? You might be on mute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Heather Springer. I'm a legislative assistant with the Office of Legislative Services. I am sitting in for Teresa Woody this week. She's out on leave. I'm assisting with the RDC, and I'm also in the office today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Springer. Yeah. Nasando, the Speaker's office staff, Ms. Viso Siaco, are you on the call?
Good morning, Vice Chair Walker and members of the Resources and Development Committee. My name is Melinda Arvizo Siaco, a Legislative Staff Assistant for Speaker Damon here in Winter Rock, Arizona. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for being on the call. Office of Legislative Counsel, introductions.
Good morning. This is Dana Bobroff from Legislative Counsel's office. I'm on the call for a little bit this morning. Also, I think Mariana Khan is getting on. Also, new attorney Chad Abeda will listen in later on, and our summer law clerk Dwight Witherspoon is likely on the call this morning. Thank you, Chair.
Hey, thank you, Ms. Bobroff. Can your staff introduce themselves? The new.
Certainly.
Yes.
Vice Chair, this is Dana again. Perhaps they're not on the call yet. I will let you know when they get on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Barbara. OPVP, any representatives from OPVP on this call? If so, introductions, please. If not, then back to Speaker's office. Senator Begay, introductions.
Honorable Vice Chair, members of RDC, Chairman Edmund Yazzie, Vice Chair Delegate Mark Freeland, and members of the Eastern Navajo Land Commission. Good morning. Carlisle Begay. I assist with federal and state government affairs for the Office of the Speaker. Go ahead.
Koshi, Ndohe Nanta for getting on the call here this morning. Colleagues of the 24th Navajo Nation Council also that might be on the call here. So we appreciate your participation, and we're doing introductions here. I believe Otto So is on the call. Honorable So.
Good morning, Chairman. You probably hear my chickens in the background. Good morning. My name is Otto So. I'm a member of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. Got out to Resources and Development Committee meetings today. It's not the judge. It's not cutting that inch. Okay, Lenny. I don't know. I just got behind by the look at me. That's a trade. That's not Jimmy. I don't know 20 minutes because the day of Bishop on the what action and yeah.
Thank you, Honorable So. Yeah, thank you for joining us here. Other colleagues of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. That is Nakaza. Okay, so moving along, Eastern Navajo Land Commission staff, introductions, starting with Mr. Rogers.
This is Larry Rogers. I work with the Eastern Navajo Land Commission as the executive director. Our office is situated in Crown Point. And that I wonder calling his state since we're on a teleconference. So it's good to hear many names being introduced today for the meeting. So it just shows that there's a great deal of interest for such a very important project. So but anyways, but at the end, Ado na Sanbashin, Sitna Jide Dashiche, Belagana Dashanal. I am originally from Tohatchi, New Mexico. So anyway, and I spent the last 15 years with the Eastern Navajo Land Commission. But of course, during my presentation, I'll do a little background on that as well too. So I appreciate being on the call with you all. Resources and Development Committee out of my own commissioners too. So yeah, let's have a good meeting this wonderful morning. Yeah.
Well, Shane, yeah, thank you for the introductions, Mr. Rogers. Any of your staff members on the call also? Introductions, please.
Good morning, Honorable Vice Chair Thomas Walker, Tanya Sosian, Auto Plaskanish, Lindo Kachini, Bashichin, Tina Bentley, Dashi, Do Toban, Dashinella, and the Administrative Assistant with Eastern Navajo Land Commission. Good morning, members of the Resource Development Committee and also Eastern Navajo Land Commission and staff. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Sosi, for the introductions. Any others? The Eastern Navajo Land Commission office? Divisions, any division, directors, staff, departments, Nana, starting with Division of Natural Resources. Department store, land department. Yeah, my Colonna, be on the call. Might be on mute.
That open, Vice Chair Walker's Jack. Resource Development Committee delegates and Osini at open 24th Navajo Nation Council. Those staff, colleagues, over Dave Nishigiyat, Benediction, Mike Alona, Leto Hatcher, or the Yedago. Robert Anishin, but Shin told conditionality on the ship without Nenslenko didn't never care about how you advocate. That's the Shinan is not the department director. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Halone. Any other division staff, departments, programs, productions?
Tele, Honorable Vice
Yes.
Chair Walker, Delegate Daniel. So I have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Rogers, is Mr. Paul Fry going to be on the call?
No, he's not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Have a sheen, not seen on the door. This then that so is she because that is net or the just briefly here. The purpose of the joint meeting is to meet with Eastern Navajo Land Commission to have a discussion on Nellie for the Eastern Navajo Agency region. At ELACO Resource Development Committee, the Eastern Navajo Land Commission. It is what ELACO purpose for the joint meeting. Though we will have 3 presentations. Q&A, though recommendations, and then close of meeting at the end. But ELACO, that evening, echo. She Kithaneto, Nahitikito, Nahatada, without Tashi, that evening. As I indicated, the chairperson of the Eastern Navajo Land Commission, you can assist here with facilitating some of the presentations here. Mr. Honorable Yazzie, I'm going to hand you the gavel here under this section.
Okay, Vice Chair, thank you. I know we have the agenda that's before us, and again, I want to thank everybody that is online, from the Resource Committee, from our commissioners, and then to our staff. The purpose of the meeting, commissioners, that we are meeting this morning via phone, and I am calling from Coolidge, New Mexico. Again, the purpose of the meeting was to give RDC an update of the project, a very important project that the commission has been working on, and the council. This was started up in years ago, and what it is basically is the return lands of the BLM, which is consisting of thousands of acres back to Navajo Nation. So once it is approved, it is going to be an historic area for the Navajo Nation. And we do have good presenters. Mr. Rogers is on, who is well known in this area. So according to the agenda, we'll go ahead, Vice Chair and committee members and commissioners, we'll go ahead and have Mr. Rogers get down to business. Mr. Rogers, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Walker, without share. And then members of both joint leadership here. So, it was winter of 2007. So it's been quite a while ago. In Red River, New Mexico, the Eastern Navajo Land Commission had a workshop. Though we invited BIA, we invited BLM to be present there. So at least they sent an individual each. From BLM, hey, Joel Farrell, yeah, invite Dale, yeah. He was such a fair gentleman that talked straight about anything. So the question came to be, of course, teasingly, the commissioners were teasing him about giving us back all the BLM land in Eastern Navajo. Of course, he didn't say that in Navajo, being English. And he did tell us that the only way to get these lands back, to restore it to Navajo Trust, is going to Congress. I mean, that was all we needed to hear. And from that point on, the commission back then, Charles Damon was the chair of the commission. He said, expressed interest in doing that. So, but that in 2008, by 2009, we had all the 31 chapters pass resolutions towards the idea of doing it. In 2011 is when the Navajo Nation Council back then, when it was 88, approved the project, the Nelly project. And then after that, we started going to Washington, D.C. to start meeting with officials. At that, Ben Lujan Jr. was on the House side. And the on the House side, we started introducing it to Udall and Heinrich, Pierce, Steve Pierce, yeah. He represented, of course, the southern part of New Mexico at the time. And then between Pierce and Lujan, they said, well, there's one problem we need to take care of, and that's Fort Wingate and Hidalgo. And so until Navajo and Zuni you resolve that problem, then we'll go ahead and then start addressing the big fish, so to speak. And so the commission did its work on its part in finishing up the matter with Fort Wingate. That land division, of course, took place in 2016 at Chaos. That's the former military reservation. Navajo Nation got the remaining piece. So anyway, December of 2016, Obama signed that into law. So it's something that we will be living with Zuni lands, kind of interior to our homelands. So and then lately, so I'm sorry, when the original Nelly project was approved, within about a year and a half, we start hearing things out of Washington that it might be a good idea to put it together with the Navajo Indian Irrigation Project. Any minerals related revenue would go into a special fund for NIP, for the future management and operation money. And this we had to take back to the Navajo Nation Council again, and I believe it was in 2013 that approved the Nelly NIP project. Around 2013 to 2016, I had the Fort Wingate project kind of got in the way. Even when it was when that was taken care of, the 23rd Navajo Nation Council had a subcommittee on NIP, and you do to this day. You have a new subcommittee on it. That older subcommittee, you kind of treated Nelly and put it in its back pocket, so to speak. The net matter gets say he's also resolved all no. So it keeps in the Lodoyash that's a lean. And so it kind of went by the wayside. 80, yeah, that when it was set up like that. And then recently, in fact, before the last election, Lujan wanted to begin talks on it again, but his position was that he didn't want NIP involved with the Nelly project. So even the commission under the current council, 24 council, and then went ahead and agreed to separate the project again, and so that's how we went back to the full council in December of 2019 at as Nelly by itself. Aimed at all that time that passed, we really learned a lot more about what else can be done with it. So the original package involved, as Mr. Yazi, our chair, pointed out, involve a good deal of federal lands, again, public domain. Those lands, again, so, in addition to that, is about 92 to 96,000 acres of former railroad land. 2198 dollars. Yeah, I guess. Okay.
Mr. Rogers, you went mute on us.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
While we get Mr. Rogers back on, we'll go ahead and continue, okay?
Okay, certainly.
So, and I asked the commissioners too, if they want to chime in, feel free to do so. As Mr. Rogers was indicating that this was, in the works for many years. And where we're at now, RDC members, is that since the Fort Wingate and Zuni issues all done with and over with, we are taking the lead to get this Nelly project done. And so we've been, of course, meeting and the commissioners, and so currently now Senator Lujan now wants to go ahead and run with the Nelly legislation up in D.C. I know we had a setback with the COVID and all, and so, but we were still conducting business, committee members. And so the last few meetings that we've had with the commissioners, Paul Fry and Mr. Blackmore, who is working up in the D.C. office, and then also with the Washington office, Ms. Lewis, we are now in we have a conference call with our U.S. leaders next week, okay? And during that call, it's going to be stated that, we're asking our congressional leaders to go ahead and start the legislation. And this is according to our lobbyists who is up in the D.C. area. As you all know, committee members, the D.C. office is not allowing any visitors, and possibly until August and September. And thereafter, once that's been cleared, then I know visits with the commissioners will be done in person, depending on this COVID situation. And so now we're just conducting business by phone. We've done all the process through Navajo Nation, through legislation, and so now it's pretty much in the hands of our U.S. congressional people up in Washington, D.C. We do have, as Mr. Rogers indicated, support, which is good. And so we are hoping that possibly that this will be completed within this year or next year, but we're aiming for this coming year. And so there was a joint letter that was signed by President Nez and Speaker Damon on this project that we're working on, so everyone could be on one page. And it was the commissioners and the president's office we stressed out that we didn't want to be on a different page when it comes to actually dropping the legislation up in the DC area. So, Vice Chair, as Mr. Rogers, I know he has a copy of this Nelly project, and it's pretty thick. Okay, so I know if you need a copy, committee members or staff, feel free to get a hold of either Ms. Sosi or Mr. Rogers, and we can provide copies for you to read on your free time. So with that, commissioners, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to indicate. Commissioner, yeah, are you back on?
Yeah.
Okay, take it over, sir.
I'm sorry. I didn't do anything. The phone just kind of just went off, and I guess I was talking to myself for about a minute.
Oh, okay.
But anyway,
well, go ahead and take the lead, sir.
Yeah, thank you for filling in. I heard pretty much a good part of your fill in for me, so I appreciate that. I was on the part on what kind of lands were involved in terms of the new package. Yeah. So that's where I was at. That I mentioned BLM lands, which is nearly 400,000 acres, about 92 to 96,000 acres of 2198 lands. Out of about 5,000 acres of sheep-lab lands. So sheep-lab lands, it's surrounding part of the former military reservation, but not the one that I talked about earlier that was divided between Navajo and Zuni. This is adjacent, and it's along I-40 and dissected by the I-40 and the railroad land. So there's about 5,000 acres there. It's in the 1960s, 50s and 60s, Chero sheep, the way it yields wool and all that, to make good mutton. No, that's not called bandahashis. It's sheep lab. I don't know if they were doing anything crazy to the sheep to make them fatter or whatever, but anyway, it's by USDA in 1965 at that. They ceased that operation, turned the land back over to BIA. So that's where that particular piece of land sits now. It's under BIA. So, under the original package of Nelly, the way the last approved by the council, it also involves converting tribal trusts. Converting tribal fee to tribal trust. As you might know, it takes environmental assessments and all these kind of things to do that. And it's very, very costly to do that. And we're talking around 400,000 acres of tribal fee lands that need to be turned to tribal trust. So that's part of the package. But given this one, the nation would have an opportunity to put some of those into what's called restricted fee. We learned from the Fort Wingate project that this can be done for Indian tribes, is to put it into restricted fee. And it really involves it keeps under the control of the Navajo Nation, jurisdiction-wise and so forth, and all the taxing related non-Navajo, non-Indians, Navajos themselves can develop these lands without having to go back to the secretary to request for use of the land. So, which is the main difference between tribal trust and tribe restricted fee? So, learning from that. We'd like to do that. in prime areas where the restricted tribal fee are being turned to tribal trustee, we might want to put those into restricted fee only. So there's that option. The other thing too is that throughout Eastern Navajo, there are scores of small parcels of land that were set aside for BIA schools or administrative use. Navajo Nation and so that's within the bill. The last thing regarding land is that we'd like to have this particular act enable a way for the state of New Mexico, Navajo Nation, and BLM to exchange lands so that the state lands that are within Eastern Agency be converted to tribal trusts while the state picks up lands elsewhere that is under the federal government. So 1998, Mr. Daniel, she was up in Utah. It was a three-way land exchange where state lands within the Utah Strip were then traded in for federal lands, and the state lands on the Navajo Nation became tribal trusts. So that being the precedence, Eastern Navajo, so, but anyway, in the long term, of course, it really would help address and resolve jurisdictional issues. As it is, Navajo Nation is responsible for a great deal of development throughout Eastern Navajo. The Eastern Navajo currently has about 40,000 people, and 95% of those are Navajo. In a situation like that, the federal government can no way say that we're turning lands that you want into Navajo, where there are non-Navajos living. That's not the case. Ashkenazi reservation over the years, historically, politically, starting with that night now, when the original reservation was made, the treaty reservation, the north and south boundary, extending from the San Juan River down to Fort Wingate. It went exactly down to where Fort Wingate was, the eastern border with it. And again, that one of the officers, adamantly said, we don't want Navajos east of this line, east of where Fort Wingate sits. Even though they would have wanted the boundary further east. So when the signing of the 1868 treaty was done. So my understanding too that the Netkaya, the Largo Canyon, all that was on the table back then, and our Navajo, the leaders back then did not want that. They didn't want that part of it. So in terms of structuring the 1868 treaty boundary. The consolidation of lands in Eastern Navajo beyond jurisdiction would really pave a good way for infrastructure, community, and economic development activities. And so and I mentioned as is, the Navajo Nation provides services throughout Eastern Agency, from preschools to police services to social services, health facilities, even though they're provided by IHS, but it does include the treatment and the health care of our people in Eastern Navajo, wherever they are. Other health facilities, so all that kind of stuff. In a sense, it's great that we call Eastern Navajo as part of the Navajo Nation. When we exclude Eastern Navajo, then the remainder of the Navajo Nation is simply just Navajo Reservation. So, off reservation, that terminology, the next actually go interpret the torture, but that Eastern Navajo torture. Kind of say that to your kids. It's very demeaning. It's something that we live with in our Navajo Nation government throughout the last century. So even just that thought of it, it really makes you want to grab this land and just put it back underneath us. So essentially, that's what we're doing, and the mission of the Eastern Navajo Land Commission is exactly that: is to regain our lands back. That's really what it's all about. So the leadership, especially from the western side, I said they see Navajo Nation Council but the further push of it, talking with any congressional leadership that you know of and so forth, will send a strong message to Washington that that Navajo really does desire to get its land back. And once that's done, once we get all these lands back, the Eastern Navajo land base will be at more than 65% under Navajo Nation jurisdiction. Though there's still a great deal of other lands, parks, of course, and then private lands. They get that we're not, of course, going after. So anyway, there's all these. Our chair Yazi also indicated that there's a booklet. It's in your boxes in Window Rock. Miss Sosie took care of that about a week and a half ago. In your boxes in Window Rock. It is about a half an inch thick. It's quite informative. It covers a lot of things beyond just the way the Navajo Nation Council approved it. Meaning, what the council approved really is the maps. There were 5 maps attached. The proposed federal legislation. Honestly, draft of course the good work of Attorney Fry, and with the work working along with the commission on drafting that up. So it got redrafted. Actually, it's what happened because it went under three times the approve and each time the federal legislation got adjusted to whatever the intent was. So the kid you get with all the different lands that are being added on to so as Mr. Yazi indicated, the next steps would be I'll put it back in his hands, but anyway, it will need to go to Congress, and Lujan is very interested in this, and of course really he's been wanting to work with us from before and all that. Heinrich it'd be now re-educating the newly elected Holland. She will need to be educated on it, and then the new Southern leadership from there, Yavel, those two congressional leaders and their staff will need to be educated on this. So I'll be available for any questions. Chair, Vice Chair, that's my presentation in the meantime.
Mr. Rogers, this is Edmund.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Vice Chair. Thank you, Mr. Rogers, and so we'll turn this back over to you, Vice Chair. Okay, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Yazzie, Mr. Rogers, for the presentation. Just a question here. The information that's a lot of information, and always helps to have something written, to help keep track of all the numbers and dates and the critical information. Ishta and Yawalo, you have anything in writing as far as your report today?
We do have that booklet. The booklet pretty much contains everything. So that's why we call it informational booklet. We learned from the first time that we visited Washington that people have all sorts of questions beyond what we were talking about. So it was at the suggestion of the team at the time to put together a booklet. So for each time we did that, we've modified it for each time after that. So the latest one we just got it back from the printer about three weeks ago. So that's what I mentioned. They're in your boxes in Window Rock. I'm sorry. I wish we could have had some good time to be able to in advance to have something to you for this meeting, don't. And my understanding of this meeting was that it would involve Nellie and then the Chaco Canyon thing that Heinrich is wanted to do a protection act on it. So, but anyways, I'll leave it at that again. In the meantime, thank you for your question, Vice Chair.
Bashir, thank you. I do have that booklet with me here. I picked it up last week when I was in Window Rock. Nice booklet, Navajo Exchange Legislative Initiative.
Mr.
Nellie,
Chair.
Spring 2021. Yes, Ms. Begay.
Mr. Vice Chair, I appreciate if I could get a copy of that and I can scan it and send it out to everyone that's participating in this meeting, because I'm getting a lot of requests for a copy of it.
Okay, Mr. Rogers and Honorable Yazzie, a request from our advisor.
Okay.
So again, thank you for the presentation. A lot of information, and I was writing notes here, 100 miles an hour. So I may have gotten like 50% of what you said, but committee members, Resource Development Committee, this is the Eastern Navajo Land Commission providing their report on activities and timelines of what significant timelines of what they're doing, what they hope to do, and so forth. So committee members, for the record, our colleague Kialan Begay is on the call. So committee members.
Vice Chair.
Yes.
Yes, this is Delegate Herman Daniels.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Yeah, I don't know should say Eastern Land Commission, President, the Chair, Delegate Edmund Yazzie should say. Yeah, I have this booklet too here. The National Navajo Exchange Legislative Initiative, Nellie Macau. I'm looking at the map. Map national. I see them. That's Western Agency, and the Kodota, DC Kodota, the paint is now Snaggy Kodota. I don't know Kodota, Mr. Rogers. Yeah, Kodota, Shita. I think it's Kodota. But I mean, Slenty Shida. I don't catch a sheep either. Kodota.
Brother, yeah.
No, my gives you get this Chino. Of course, the dad on this. I don't know the brother shit on this. Yeah, Kodota. I don't know. I hear the honey. And Kodota Mr. Rogers with the Utah Trust Fund. I just and in la Kodota. So I don't know the Eastern Land Commission. No, the Kodota Benashne Navajo Utah Commission. Asian Committee in Hollywood. I'm looking at the map. Kodota Nelly the Chakra Mesa Complex. In a harder lot endpoint. This is very, very informative. Kodota I'm Shemigi Kodo out of Mr. Rogers the show. Kodo Brooklyn hits Oda Sagi in a show. I don't know the legislation Kodo the Lingy Resolution CMY 4220 out of number of votes which is very, very good. This is a very good document Kodo. So Johnny Kodo Sada Ideshka Ada and the found the on the start on the speed so Johnny but it is even benign on the Chakra Mesa complex. Is it? It is nice kid on the Kodota Vice Chair. It is nice.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Daniels, for the question. You're cutting out at the end there, but I think presenters heard your questions. Presenters, Honorable Yazzie and Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, Vice Chair, this is Rogers. Mr. Daniels, the Chakra Mesa complex is a kind of the protected area by the federal government. They actually delineated the whole area of it. But anyway, it is located south of Pueblo Pintada. If you look at page 22, it gives an idea of where it is within Eastern Navajo. It's pretty much directly south of Pueblo Pintado, the chapter area. I mean, not the chapter area, but where the community is again of Pueblo Pintado is directly south of that. I guess it would be pretty much to the southeast portion of that. It's rich in cultural artifacts and so forth. So it does need protection. They're saying there is a complex that might just pretty much give Mesa Verde a run for its money, so to speak. So has well protected and where the part of the exchange comes from, the term exchange, BLM would end up consolidating its protection areas as well too. So within those areas are either trust lands and fee lands. And part of Nelly would address that by taking that over to the federal side and doing land consolidation on the federal government side as well. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Daniels. It'll show where it is too. There's also a kind of a on page 32 On page 32, it shows the entire area. What kind of lands are involved? Mesa. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rogers. Oh, Honorable Daniels. That's nice. Daniels.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, committee members, any other questions, comments? That's nice of Kishananda.
Honorable Vice Chair Walker, this is Delegate Rick Nez. I'm on the call now. Just for your information, I have been listening in for about 20 minutes now. I got off the NHA Selection Committee meeting, but you're more than welcome to finish the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Nez, for joining us here. Committee members, questions, comments?
Che.
Yes. Delegate Freeland. Honorable Freeland.
Morning, Che. Resource Development Committee members and Eastern Land Commissioners. Thank you for that update, Mr. Rogers. It's always enlightening to hear your updates and learn more. I gained some more knowledge today this morning, so I just wanted to say thank you. This is a very unique opportunity, especially for Eastern Navajo. And I commend Mr. Rogers and the staff at the office in Crown Point for working on this throughout the years, and Mr. Fry as well as past commissions, Eastern Land Commission. You know, I've said to you, my colleagues, that we've always had a disadvantage in Eastern Navajo, and that continues because of land status. 23 different land statuses, and that's what's the hard thing about getting right-of-ways or gaining access to other means to get, and that's always been a challenge for us. That's always going to continue to be a disadvantage for our people out there. And until we can gain further lands, until we can start filling in the checkerboards, things will begin to change. And this is the beginning of that process. And I know as an RDC member on RDC, I know my colleagues are always very supportive of projects like this, or working together on areas, including our people, especially if it benefits our people. So I just want to make that comment, Che, and once again say thank you to the staff. Thank you to I know this is Mr. Rogers' put his retirement on hold because of this, and Senator Lujan as well. So, for them reaching out to us in that fashion, the way they did. And, once we get things going on the Washington side, I hope we get this done real soon. That way we can begin the process of gaining new lands in Eastern Navajo. And that map, the map that has all those different colors on it, will begin to change. And, I'm going to continue to pray for it. I'm going to continue to pray also for rain. But, Che, I just want to make that comment, and I think we need to continue to work together and really help us out in Eastern Navajo. This is a big opportunity for us, and, for our people as well. So, thank you, Che.
Thank you, Honorable Freeland, for your comments there. Any other comments from committee members? Comments and questions?
The Tele, Honorable Vice Chair Walker.
Yes,
Honorable. So, Kato Craggy. For the longest time, ever since the 1900s, the net advocate had they were classified as squatters. Yet it was our indigenous homeland. Ko di kwagi chakra mesa the night they kidigi hey guy na ahagi yeah. Right from Chaco Canyon, though it goes through White Horse Lake chapter. Ado kwagi the kai khazan. Now they skis in Linaholia. Ado the Chaco Mesa goes all the way to Torium. It went on at a dig Katoba on Sindole. According to so lay upon the Bashida Ehegi allotment sample cancelled Dalia. Edo the Hashid or a Badajo Badalia go eight or add in Hikea on the Shimaha Shaya add the Cheyans and Nalia add the Bugans on the none is calling it for needs Tadios to Judan. Ada Kojon lay blue water to Hudan. Lay blue water village Holia. There's a lot that's not Nilland a Saho a homestead. I see our Olia homestead with Yagi. They were in the process of getting it private land. They had to improve it. What my concern is BIA do BLM. I get that day so do DA quaggy land exchange initiative do list. So that they need eight of the kick each one they need car a kundley na user has under. So you see the natural elves and Highway 550 in the Albuquerque and a team. Anything south of it, yeah, you guys can pursue exchange. Tutan Hidini, Akunde, not easy going north at about mile marker 117, 118 to the east. Homestead, Arviso Ranch, all the way north. Argo Canyon, so the way the ne Kedat. All ya Homan Bada Zulun as Nil. A co a cato a artist reservation indoors. A just now the legacy so anigi. Wish to show just now the community schools, just now the health centers. NHA housing. That's not part of the land exchange. I don't know what you're on the east side of this now. Lay all the way on the north side of this now. The naked hut. Machines are cut now on because they're on their allotments. Kokojeha, she thinks of the heat. I educate that in each area. Put the net at Ada. Late I don't say the whole neither. Don't just neither. Even so quite it's not this is so uneasy. ayesi bahanegi hajine Oliehigi Quaggy Aidin Nishindo Clay. To say what our Ebon says case, so what our egg could be just here. So to a hansi. Gignance in the oh Kajot or Nil. Holistic thinking go what our Ebon says case. Laden hidden. Kid had new Halit are in she's or the net and the clean the Halit are in his reservation that he lad. So a study a so a that is need. To a colon. It is TA without a Mukaba upon a sindole. Just traces on the Kado Sudanese case and say without a big hasty only. I see Mahashta illa and Lakin Halgrade. We Joho Anigito, what they Joho Anigito, Agisi, in Saka, so Anigi, a large, not Anigi. Shit didn't know. Ado be yada shit. Repatriation will ya. A late in that on. Non lied or late. A quaggy flato. A deed thing. Castration and I. A without a ashmond. Are the a on sea case only. Hajo. So I see the get off King Hoshi the Taddy Kaho on shit. But that had nothing. That she need to chat the house Ginaka. But it at the Dohna. Condon lady. What our A has state only. I'm gonna have to leave this call because I got legislation over at BNF committee. Kundit Shaba Honosindoli to what our A. Tato. If need be, in that council resolution to include the area that I just discussed. But Ailsham and I'll go back on mute.
You, Honorable Chairman yeah. China, I need to hand the Joe Hata Yati or Hata Ahazan. Like has don't overjoyed now. You have to, I guess, imagine the level of seriousness or severity of the issue. I think, yeah, good night now. What another Yati go. Bakes can neck or Joe Hata Ahazan. Don't overjoyed now. So what Elliot Ottons and he'll join the acquisition. Today, he saw the Anne. At Kaya Wind or the Ad Hajda on the Hawk with the Hajata. Today's national or Johata Jean Bahazan. It's a Shiban that Resource Development Committee members making a field visit out there, site visit for more better understanding visual for that visual impact so we can understand and provide direction, leadership, and advocacy for our Eastern relatives. Committee members on the class the presentation and the historical aspect of the matter here. then we have two other bullet points here. Tentative plans for Washington, D.C. coordination and interactions. Honorable Edmund Yazzie, you have the floor to present this information. None.
Okay. Thank you, Vice Chair and RDC members, and also to our commissioners, and then our staff as well. Always indicated they're doing a good job, and I do mean that. No brownie points. But anyhow, what the next step, as I indicated, Vice Chair and Chair and members, is that the commission has been talking with our consultants up in DC, and so now what we're doing is that since Senator Lujan is aware of this, and he's been informed that Navajo, because of the joint letter and the legislations of President Nez and Speaker Damon, we did advise our congressional leaders that we are in the moving state now, that we want to get this complete. So the good thing is that we have not heard anything from them, which is, I heard the comment before, no news is good news. And so they are aware that we're going to start pushing this. As the DC office, they're not allowing any visitors until August, but right now all business is being done by telephones. So they are aware of it, and would just like to ask the committee members, and of course, even though there's already a legislation that was passed, that for your support. And once this is complete, it will be a very historic time for the Navajo Nation, for the council, for the president, and for the people, as we always say. So that is where we are at. And then Vice Chair and committee members, we as a commission will go ahead and keep the committee informed and possibly give you, not possibly, but we can give you an update at your request. So that is where we are at right now. And of course, it's a we effort. Everyone has really worked together, from the staff at the Eastern Commission, and then the commissioners, and then also it's really good to have Paul Fry, and then I don't know, Ms. Barbara, if is online, but to have everybody work at this, it's going to be possible. So that's what I would have to say, Vice Chair. We also call the commission the Che Commission, so because we're all related through being Che. So anyhow, I'll leave it at that, Vice Chair, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Yazzie. Committee members, any questions for our colleague here, Honorable Yazzie?
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay, there's a couple of voices speaking all at once, but I did hear Honorable Henio. Shai, you go first. Honorable Henio.
We just started our BNF committee meeting, and so we're going to accept the agenda. And there's a modification on the agenda. Daniel Shinanda, Daniel So, or Tele Mark Freeland. We're going to hear your legislation right now. So if you could jump on the Budget and Finance Committee. Well.
What call was that for, brother? Or what?
Okay, Helio, Delegate Daniel, so I'll get on that call. I'll exit this meeting right now. Thank you.
Okay. A couple of our colleagues are getting off the call to attend another meeting. I think I heard Mr. Rogers. You wanted the floor?
Actually, I didn't say anything, but thanks for the opportunity. I'll go ahead and add to Chair Yazzi's briefing on the plans for DC. So next Tuesday at 1 p.m. will be a conference call with congressional staffers. Although the intent of that will be just pretty much what we went through today, kind of like an educational, some background information and so forth, and the intent of Nelly. Although they would then have the information. The booklets, AA Washington contact attorney Paul Moorhead, he's with the Powers and Associate. AA, he's our contact at the DC level. He's making those arrangements with the congressional staffers to sit in on the call. Just by email exchanges toward the end of last week, there's only one person that said the time was not good for them. For any one of you that want to listen in on it, please send me or Miss Sosie emails, and we'll send you the call-in information once we have that available. It's not totally set up yet in terms of the logistics, but the meeting is set for next Tuesday afternoon at 1 o'clock our time, Navajo time, meaning Navajo Nation time as well as Mountain Daylight. So Eastern Standard Time, it'll be at 3 o'clock Eastern Daylight. So that's scheduled next week. Other beyond that, when feasible, when they can start allowing visitations and so forth in the DC area for meeting with congressional leaders. Hopefully that we might be able to do that in July onward, July and August, so sometimes through there, also on behalf of the legislative branch, Mr. Carlisle Begay is assigned on behalf of the Office of the Speaker to work with us on this. So definitely he will be on the call next week and then start our association with the DC contacts. Although we'll let Miss Santee Lewis's office know about it as well. And so we'll be in contact with that. So those of you that are listening in today and want to listen in on that call next week, please let us know of your interest to do so. That's just adding on to Mr. Yazzi's brief presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Hakushi. Mr. Rogers. Okay, so committee members, any other questions and comments on this item here? Akoshi, Tele, Honorable Begay, you have the floor.
Chairman, good morning, RDC members. With limited information or knowledge about the Eastern Land Commission, any other situations though, but I need to situation. And I need to can't only the suggest, but I need to say that the city national. So, Kaya ni to those change ya had Ziggy, so that's chairman. So, Hagishi in the house Niniki. He said, "Oh, Jun he obey KCG, so
Lahti the Nahot when Nikito ADG Epic Eho no Ekodoi Yeta Titasha. Okoko Adora Gushi did out or list no Satin, especially from a different area of the Navajo Nation about Nasa Skitcha. But what in the shit Shinit gaining gather more information is my situation. And he could do with the Navajo Land Commission. What on his has store. What in the aid or could you hope he's kid that you're in his has on the so is she they could not source booklet in Hicholia and I haven't get it yet. Maybe I'll check on it over at the Winrock box today sometime. I could end the sheet or AUC Joe hit a not source. Okay, so I don't know if you've shared that with the committee. Deep in yet the did a oversight being kid. Did a council being kid. Did be cut the chat argo a shot it up and a hagon hit on Nido did on his chat. Short also it provides me additional information of what is the purpose of this particular meeting or lecture. So issue that today stock chairman, if possible, that the Eastern Land Commission would provide some type of a summary. Again, if it was forward, I'll need to review it. Otherwise, I need to RDC needs to be, I guess, on notice to say that this is the purpose of today's meeting, and these are the requests. Ecuador Nasnet Tanadi Kato, I been not dealing. What I been at hours and all this quite at Sassit Lake. So, Ecuador Eastern Land Commission, Nosenigi, what I Shazino, what on he caterless chairman.
Thank you, Honorable Pigay. Yet, what answer the case of summary, what no la. That is all this. So that book for Digi, I guess that's to serve as the information to gain from this meeting. What I see, don't just that book for Digi. Then that, the page phone, they give you she summarize the yet is all this go. Mr. Rogers, though, Chairman Yazzie. But I don't that's nice of kitchen and Resource Development Committee members. If not, then we can proceed to the next item. Amendments, no. Edo had to see I can just in the amendments. Igi Ado in Chairman so Edo Tacho college in our needs, that's a linko. I don't know if Chairman Yazzie, Mr. Rogers, if you want to go ahead and provide that information on these amendments that are listed there in the bullet points.
Chair, I'll wait for Mr. Yazzie to say something, but I can do that.
Okay, go ahead, proceed. Rogers.
All right. Thank you, Vice Chair, and then my chair, Commissioner Chair Yazzie. On the agenda, possible amendment to current plan, current plan. Again, he did infer to that. Yeah, Mr. So he pointed that out before he left the meeting about his concern for Tlanaho Dishley area and that school compound and so forth not being part of the plan. And again, let me give you a little background as to why that's the case. When we started meeting with BLM, after 2007, we had several meetings with them and so forth. And I think one thing that this project did was it really opened up eyes for, I think, the Farmington office. Oyo but that the she's get that the Navajos are, you know, going after the land and want it back. I don't know. The Nacha, a lot of oil leasing activities have taken place since then. It is my assumption that's what caused it, is because we were asking for these lands back. So as much as they could, they've been leasing out those federal lands for oil and coal fracture, what do you call it? Oil fracking activities in that area. So with that as a background, that there's a great deal of interest, there's a great deal of resources there. Navajo Nation is able to realize some good revenue out of it. What Mr. So is saying is that the sacred place of is not taken into consideration to be part of the Strania. Out of the compound at the school, the health center, we are looking at a map to see what kind of lands there are where these are situated. These the itself and the school compound again. So the matter that Mr. So brought up, he brought this up at a coordination meeting with the office of the speaker last week. That's the first time I've even heard of it, that he had this concern. And so, as you know, for over a year, December of 2019, when the commission passed its resolution, last spring 2020, the council approved it. And more than a year later, this came up. So in a way, that from my perspective, you know, to really, the letters to Washington already as to the current plan. So when we started meeting with BLM in those early days, what they said was road south of Atan Highway, it was a state highway 44. Any land south of 44, there are certain areas that are disposable need. And it's because of that we use that as a boundary. The remainder of the boundary, it follows the Executive Order 709. It's not reservation that for 4 years, and from 1907 to 1911, it's not reservation. And President Taft is the one that, with his executive order, did away with that reservation. Anyway, all the way to the south, is included in the Nelly. Anything that is within this Nelly boundary, federal lands, and that's what it continues to say. So, according to Mr. So, we're not asking for any lands back north of 550, and that's his concern. So, the concern that he has not been brought to the attention of the commission itself. Today, in that those that are attending, it is not today in that. So my suggestion would be to go ahead and Chair Yazzie, place it on the agenda for the June 18th meeting. We'll rediscuss it and then go from there, Lily. As committee member Begay is suggesting, you know, he's basically saying this is a commission, Eastern Navajo Land Commission project. So, I mean, that's exactly what needs to happen first before we start taking it anywhere else. So I think that's good advice. Thank you, Mr. Key Ellen Begay, on that. So, but Vice Chair, just for your information, I wanted to give a little brief background about it. And then there's two things, that Mr. So brought up, why we're not making it part of Eastern Navajo. To me, that suggests that he's talking about a boundary, Eastern Navajo Agency boundary. This is not that. This is the Nelly. Nelly is different from an Eastern Agency boundary. you see, I mean, if we were so bold, maybe it can still be considered. So that the stars are all lined up. So yeah, according to Mr. So, the leadership in Washington, you know, the leadership is really lined up for us to work with, from congressional to the presidency. So you know, one consideration would be to just treat it as a reservation bill as well. The reservation boundary, it would take in all these lands that we're talking about. On top of that, we could extend it, following the boundaries of Nagizi area up in the northeast area, and accommodate that though. So, but there's a difference between exterior reservation boundary and then the Snelly boundary. They're not the same thing. The Nelly boundary is saying within this area, we want the federal lands back. That's what it's saying. And I think more specifically, we need to discuss this as a commission at the June 18th meeting. Thank you, Vice Chair Yazzie.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Rogers. Sir Helena from Navajo Land Department, question. Yeah. Hey,
Jack, can you hear me?
yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. Hakushila, yate. Apendo kwa sista hosnaido dikaya kwando iniwa James and Resource Development Committee, other delegates, Eastern Land Commission. You know, as my brother Mr. Rogers talked about, we've been involved at the beginning as well from the Land Department, and it kind of the spinoff came off of the tri-party agreement with BIA, BLM, Navajo Nation, that tri-party agreement of what was supposed to be the phases that happened. And then the bigger chunk is what Mr. Rogers is talking about, is taking it a step further. The Obakino na halomba na altehindadi kayahagi. You know, it all started with the 2198 lands, all those executive order lands that are still around in the eastern, around Crown Point, under BIA. And it wasn't really the boundary issue; it was the land issue. One of the big concerns was the tribal members that are on BLM lands. Pinedale, a home site. He's laying there without knowing where the boundary. They're not fenced. There's no indication. So they wanted to get a home site near some of those other existing dwellings, and that. That's when the land status came up. It's BLM land, so we can't issue a lease on it. BLM bond na done the doni. Dapat di nido they're still waiting on the land exchange down there. They said that you guys are holding it up. You didn't know. Okay. So those are kind of the reasons why we got involved. Something even closer, I guess, is when you're coming to Winderuck. Lay mind because you're coming down the hill towards Endot on the right side or on the north side of 264. That's all BLM land. So that's where we were wanting the exchange in the beginning to start off with tri-party agreement and identify the 100 and something families that are on BLM lands, and helping the chapters Little Water chapter has been trying to get some improvements, and right there on the corner, they're right at the corner of Trust Land and BLM, the power line had to come across. It's fixing those kind of situations. Was one of the main things that we started the conversation back in 2006, 2007, working with BLM. And then since then, there's been several district managers that we have met with that wanted to work towards that transfer, exchange. Delegate Daniels, Esha Ehad, Ninigi, Choctaw Mesa. I said that okay, in exchange, we can go up to about 5,000 acres at the Farmington office level. No. So we kind of started working along that path, but we couldn't make a decision if we really wanted to give up those cultural sites. Chaco Canyon git the ne. I said base obey net Danes on the Honda Kago. No, we never really got a position from the nation standpoint, from the administration at that time. If that is something that we will entertain and support, if that's what we want to do, so since then, we just haven't been back involved. And as Mr. Rogers mentioned, that BLM had identified the south of 550 as disposal lands because they can't manage them. They're not able to manage them. And then the other issue came up was the surface subsurface. So that's another area I guess we're going to have to look at as the commission moves forward working with the legislators in Washington, D.C. Surface, you see it on the subsurface, but not it. Oil. And the gas, that's a dollar. Split the state, they just get approval from Navajo to cross and develop on top of. They still go to BLM and get the permits to permission to drill, exploitation, and all of that. So that's kind of going to be defeating the purpose. So I recommend that we keep the surface and subsurface intact for the nation. And if all of this happens, then there'll be a defined area that's going to be Navajo. Census any the reservation line is way over here and it's not reservation land, trust land, but the Kaya and the auto chapter local government. No, Census Bureau wouldn't take all of those numbers and include it with the Navajo Nation numbers. They're counted as Navajo for census, but when it comes to the funding source that comes as a result of those numbers, those Navajo numbers are counted with the county numbers. They say, based on which they had to what that. Based on he can't now the net that so those are just some of the issues, and I think restrictive fee is the way to go. We do exactly everything we kind of do with fee lands without any government involvement. So it's totally under the Navajo Nation's control. Although even on trust land, is all under Navajo control now with the general leasing regulations. So, but it allows us a little bit extra benefits that we're not able to do on trust lands. Okay. A comment so thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Halona, for the additional information and to the subject we're discussing here. Shananta, committee members, questions, comments for the presenters?
Jay.
Hey, Honorable Freeland. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jay. Mr. Rogers and Mr. Halona, thank you for that update. I just wanted to bring up a couple of comments. We have one of our chapter officials, Lake Valley, and I don't know if this is included in the Nelly. He lived on BLM, and he's a Vietnam veteran. He's also raising his grandson. And, how do we help individuals like that who were mistakenly given wrong surveys and they can't acquire running water or electricity because of that, the mistake? He lives west of Highway 371, north of Choctawash. And, I really admire him. I respect him highly. He lost his son, yes, and he's raising his grandson right now. But, he's also working, raising his grandkids. How do we help individuals like this in this case? How do we help? He's probably one of many out there who are on BLM, just like what Mr. Halona had mentioned. How do we help them? Yeah, that's a real concern, and I think we need to really focus on that too with Nelly. Maybe it's auto, but I just wanted to bring that up. And then my other concern is related to the Chaco area. And, I've heard rumors about other tribes wanting parcels of BLM out there. I don't know if that's true. They have an ally with the new Secretary of Interior. Maybe that's just genetics. I don't know. But, the potential of other tribes gaining BLM access or BLM parcels out there too. That's concerning. So I just want to bring that up, that comment and those two comments. So maybe I think it changed.
I don't know why he or she have their official.
Hey, Honorable Freeland, your comments and your questions. Presenters, do you have anything to respond with to the delegate here, Delegate Freeland?
This is Rogers.
Yes, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And then thanks for the input from my Celeste, Mike, Mr. Halona. Yeah. I'm glad you verified a couple of things. One is that you said the Nelly is a land issue bill. It's not a exterior boundary bill. So he confirmed that. So that's good. The other thing that he mentioned too is the transgression since the 1970s. With BLM. Administrative matter go up till 1992 was the last exchange. Out of Navajo side, I didn't have any more lands on its back pocket to exchange it. So he covered that, and then of course it's true that was the fundamental basis behind Nelly, was to put kind of like a turbo engine in it and make it so that we go for as much land as possible. And then once we start finding out that Congress is the only one that could do this for us, then it became a project in itself. So, other staff like Ray Pine, Alfred DeHaya, in working with this, besides with under Mr. Halona's leadership at Land Administration. So just as a historical footnote, Mr. Alfred DeHaya, he, along with Farrell, Joel Farrell from BLM, BIAJ, Jerry DeGroot, those three were kind of like the instrumental people in terms of this tri-party exchange that Mike pointed out. So, but historically, we go even way back beyond the treaty. Shortly after the treaty, and the first Navajo delegation that went to Washington, D.C. was in 1887. In the report that I allude to, we make it the cover now. The cover of the booklet, for those of you that have it, there's a Navajo delegation that went to Washington in 1874. So AD gets us just that as a footnote and as our fundamental historic connection in terms of how we value land and how we want more land back beyond the treaty land. That's how that all started to happen. So, of course, over the years, when you look at the way the Navajo Nation grew, it was mainly the Arizona side and then the Utah side that we were able to get more lands back. Eastern Ige, because of the political clout that the Lagana ranchers had in Eastern Navajo, with the checkerboarding process, all that occurred because of that. There's fencing everywhere, and everything is in a straight line, and it's because of the way that was planned out by the government itself, and then ranchers that bought out lands from the railroad. Even 1950s, they start selling land. Who could they sell it to? The only biggest buyer was Navajo Nation. So since then, the Navajo Nation has bought back about 27 lands altogether, 27 ranches, not as a nation. So to this day, tribal ranches, and so those ranches then they were once private land, so then they got converted to tribal trust because Navajo monies were used to buy it up. Okay, so now that's part of the Nelly Nana stuff where we want those converted to tribal trustee, and then in some instances to tribal to restricted fee. So going on to Mike also mentioned examples of customary land users on federal land. Squatters, but from the Navajo perspective, customary land users, Navajos living on BLM land. There are 23 families that are considered to be on BLM lands. And so with this monumental project, the Nelly, it would erase all that. Those lands would be tribal trust, and upon that, our people that are living on BLM lands will become legally standing in the rightful place in terms of maintaining their former homelands. Just as mentioned, though, where there's no fencing, when you're out there, you know you're on Navajo land. They just ask you, and you know, of course, they're all they're abandoned or they're no longer there. Corrals at the traces of corrals at the. So you know that it's Navajo land. So you know if you want to put up a home there, you should have every right to do it. And that's what people do. And then it comes like, you know, with all the instrumentation that exists now, GPS and GIS applications, you know, the eye in the sky, the satellite from, you know, up above that shows what land statuses that we're on. So they're finding families that are living on the wrong side of the line. Squatters, but that need illegal occupiers. No, customary land users, and that's what we need to refer to them as. Even on the reservation side, we are customary land users of those lands, regardless if you have a home site lease or not. You know, in our own way. So that's how we need to look at it. But anyways, so Mr. Franklin, Vice Chair Franklin, Freeland, how we would look at families living on BLM land is the sooner we take care of Nellie, the sooner those problems would be resolved. On their own, they can go to BLM and apply for a lease. But leases are only for 10 years. They can be renewed. But when you have a lease, then they'll allow electricity being brought in and so forth. As Mr. Halona might remember, we tried to work with BLM to see if we can get leases for all the 23 families that are on BLM lands as a government to government administrative solution. So that he didn't need. The only way you can have it is if we can purchase it. You don't need. Although we put together a plan to purchase 40, 80 acre tracts, and that BLM turned around and said, "We want a permanent solution. We prefer land exchange." You don't need. So it's like, you know, I mean, what good is a revolving door? You know, when you can't even use it right. But anyways, so it really comes down to this final thing, which is if they want a land exchange, well, let's do it through a comprehensive kind of settlement. And that's what Nellie is all about. Is the longer we waited on it, you know, we were able to add some more thinking to it to make it more comprehensive. And sorry to say, but what we really didn't think of is an exterior boundary. Mr. Sue pointed that out. I think that's what he really means as to why we're not including in that type of a bill, which would be subsequent to this. Let's go for an exterior reservation bill on that one, exterior boundary. That's part of the commission's goal to do so. So I think these are some points that all needed to be made. It's all part educational and so forth. Although a summary report, Vice Chair, I think I'll go ahead and do that as you don't even have to do a directive on it. I'll do a summary report on what we're talking about and send it to the committee members as well as I'll send it to Shami. Although Shami also asked for a copy of the booklet. The booklet being so many pages, and maps, it takes up a lot of memory in terms of computer use. I'm able to mail it out in terms of by email. But if I put it on a thumb drive, that's helpful too. And since it went to print, I might be able to get a copy of it electronically from the printer. Reduce in the memory size. And that could be available to send over the wires as well by internet. So chair, my chair, and then vice chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Larry Rogers. Appreciate the additional comments and additional information on the matter. Although, comments. Though FYI, Nabikiati work session has started also. Although Chairman is quite as not that we did as a bahan sequence. Shananta, Chairman is, are you on the call?
Yes, Honorable Vice Chair Walker. Yeah, meeting be was get on Kanan Loy by Henson. I'm just trying to get my things in order here at home before I leave. Listening to the conversation, I have not heard so much of this Eastern Land Commission, though. And Ivan Lenido, Mr. Rogers, and everybody that did the presentation here. I believe that by yesterday, RDC supports Eastern Land Commission, the effort that's been done as well. Support in Hill and the Agido and Hidanejo Egis. Bait in the given Ajikaya, Aharahisto, Gido, not on. Now, Caden Lenigi, yes, Gido, Benantin of Tenigi, we get at the Tadoshin Koro, Nikisi Zido, Nasko, Nahigate, Oshin, Akon, and so hot this to share Arnold Koro, navigation, Lenigido, Koro, Ban Yeskigi, Mr. Rogers, and the share Honorable Freeland, Honorable Yazi, Enio, and also Chairman. So, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Nez, for your comments. I need the Resource Development Committee. Hayat Nenigit Desunils Ado Ben Hike no Ka Ben Higa Soz Jonigoto legislatively Ado through advocacy representation Jayahot Eco Jayabata de I see Nskago Bahwin Eco Atata Eato Quendeta Ne Kadeko who Baking down Sidness Linko. Oh, you, Bansa, Kesigido, or Hayuko, Shinantako, Akunate, Ya, Webaho, Ada, Ado, Trinando, Litrohana. The continuation of updates being presented to the Oversight Committee. They need Kido, or what Ella Kotalaza, where Banana, see, Shinantado. It's enough colleagues of the 24th Navajo Nation Council. We move down to the last item on the agenda, which is to close the session here. Recommendations da banana follow up questions, recommendations, follow up before we conclude the meeting. Committee members, advisor, should see. Do you have any questions or recommendations or follow up matters, advisor?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, any recommendation for follow-up meeting would come from both RDC or Eastern Land Commission if necessary. In keeping me, but not it least and also, been out of us, it or die a home care betrouwt the Eastern Land Commission staff contracted or is then also to a been what a anti for me, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Begay, for that. The Eastern Navajo Land Commission, we also would welcome and be open to your advisement and your direction here as far as additional follow-up meetings, and although the site visit that was mentioned earlier, that being a possibility. Of course, Resource Development Committee members can also pick that up and put those items on our agenda so that we can plan and then take action on doing such. We can close the meeting here. I just want to thank Eastern Navajo Land Commission membership. The Eastern Navajo Land Commission office staff, Mr. Rogers, and your staff. Vice Chair, you cut off. Okay, can you hear me though? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now, yeah.
Ayun na, huista kon dan dis. What other satag? Ako tela ko. Ako sing close of meeting though. Time is 10:20 or 11:20 a.m. We will close this meeting, and everyone have a good day and take care, and we'll see you soon. I'll go on there. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go on there.